3, 2, 1. Hey guys, I'm Devin.
I'm Diego.
And I'm Max.
And we're Baka Burrito. And on today's episode, we're going to be telling you guys what our favorite genres of anime are. This is really used as should be used as like a stepping stone for you guys to find out what kind of shows you guys might be into if you're just getting started, or if you want to explore your taste a little. You guys can go ahead and find some shows from different genres that we like. And if you guys have any suggestions for us, go ahead and leave them down below. Without further ado, what do you guys have anything else to add?
Watch everything we suggest.
This guy. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Max, if you want to start off with, we're gonna give our number 1 and our number 2 options for what our favorites are, and then we'll explain some categories that may be close to that as well. So Max, if you want to start with your number 2.
All right, my number 2 is isekai animes. And this is more of a newer genre that's come out in recent years, especially with like seasonal anime, because
the only thing I have to say about it's not a new genre. It's the classification itself is
it's become very popular and it's created its own genre recently as a result.
So what is it?
It's essentially like, you ever get tired of life in general? Well, Truck-kun might hit you and you might end up in another world. But in all seriousness, an isekai anime is essentially somebody being transported to another world, whether that be them getting hit by a truck, which a lot of them seem to fall into that same category, which I think is hilarious. Or they might fall asleep and just wake up in another world, or the god of that world might be like, hey, yo, we just gonna snatch you up from your home and throw you in.
Don't forget the one that started it all was Dot Hack, and that was literally playing a video game.
Yeah.
So with isekai anime, it's literally defined as any anime in which the protagonist is transported to another world. There's also a subcategory of this called the reverse isekai, where someone comes from a magical world into the real world.
Which I love that idea, the whole idea behind that, because the ones that they do, the one where like the fictional characters from all the stories start showing up. That one I think is done really well. It's really creative.
Would the Devil is a part-timer count as one?
Oh yes,
actually yes.
Devil part-timer is Devin and I both really like that anime. I know, but what I really like about this genre in general is like kind of like how people in everyday life like imagine themselves, like use their imagination or have a daydream going to another world. Like you get to actually watch people like live that life and be like, damn. Maybe I should run in front of go into the middle of a street real quick.
Oh,
no. A little dark, but that's how it gets isekai.
So ignoring that point from Max because that was wild.
I'm not suggesting anybody to actually do that. Let me just be clear here. I'm just saying that the genre really seems to push that as the main method of getting to the other world, which I question.
Oh boy, I'm the one editing this.
So
no pressure, Diego.
So the thing about isekai anime for me would have to be the fact that I'm more of a fan of the isekai anime where the main character is not overpowered. Something like Re:Zero specifically, that I think that would have to be. I'm a big fan of Dot Hack, and that was one of my first anime ever, but I think Re:Zero is probably the best rendition of an isekai in my opinion, because he's not that strong and he's still fighting with everything he has to make the world better.
What I kind of like is how like they set up in a way where he has like checkpoints, like how you'd be playing an RPG. And like I like the whole concept though that he gets to restart from a certain point, because it really like gives you like it really makes it interesting because you realize this first go around is like, all right, now I know what I have to do. Second go around is like, how do I strategize? Third go around is depression because he failed the second time around. Fourth time around, same thing. And then eventually he gets
et cetera. And sometimes he solves it. Sometimes things don't work out even though he solved the problem at hand.
Because problem.
Because things always find a way to keep going because, there's a story narrative. So Max,
out there.
If you had to narrow down 3 anime that you would recommend from this genre, what would they be?
Well, for a general anime fan or like...
Just your recommendations, if you like them.
My straight up recommendations. One is definitely Konosuba, just because that takes every stereotype in the isekai genre turns it up on its head, makes fun of everything. And if you want something that also has like a lot of comedy aspects to it, definitely a good one to start with, in my opinion.
Sylvia-san.
Oh my god, there's so many things wrong with that anime, but I love it.
So number 2?
Number 2 would actually be Log Horizon for
Okay.
me because it has some of the Sword Art Online feels without sort of being dumb like Sword Art Online gets. And it actually does a really interesting dynamic where it's a lot of people being trapped in a video game and how they go about trying to set up their own economy, their own system, their own way of governing all the guilds. And I think it's just a really cool concept in of itself. And then I'd say the third one, I'm trying to think, is definitely ReZero, like Devin suggested, because it's a fun anime. It's with some very dark elements. It changes up the pace overall, and it's a good time. Like it has two seasons right now.
Yeah, 2, and the second half of season 2 will be finishing up coming back in January.
Yeah, and I think it's just the characters are great, and most of the characters are great. There's some I'm not
of course.
But I'm not not gonna say names, but
we
all know what I'm talking about.
This guy. All right, so Diego, if you want to go ahead and say your number 2.
Okay, so my number 2 is psychological thriller anime. So things like Death Note, Parasite, Blast Tempest, which are my 3 recommendations.
Amazing.
I'm just straight up say my 3 recommendations. There's also Code Geass, and stuff like that.
Okay.
It's just I love just there's always a twist to the world to make it like to break down a character's psychology. And that's the part that I love about it. And on top of the fact that it's almost always like a little eerie. And I'm not a big horror fan, but I think a lot of the most creative things come from like horror elements and thriller elements. So like things like demons and stuff like that. I love how, in shonen when we get demons, they're usually like very like super cool looking and stuff. But like in thrillers and horrors, like these demons look so creepy and stuff.
It's also another one that would fit in that I actually recently got Max to start reading is actually Promised Neverland, and I think you would like that a lot.
Promised Neverland, yeah, I've heard a lot of it.
Promised Neverland, because that.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for that one. I don't know. Has that one end? I like to wait for shows to end so I can just binge.
Well, the show has 1 season and it is over.
Second season coming out in January, actually.
Yes.
Okay, so that's probably the best time to get into it then.
Yeah, I agree. But so shows like that fall into the psychological thriller genre like Diego said, they do have a lot of overlap with horror, and I'm a huge horror fan. It's unfortunately it's not going to make my list today, so spoiler. But I'm a huge horror fan, and he's right because of the fact that I feel like thriller is scary in a sense that it's dealing with something a little more realistic, like a game of cat and mouse of the mind, where you're trying to outthink an opponent who can outthink you, and there's so many moving pieces that's scary versus something that's like a slasher or a horror where it's like, oh, this thing is just going to straight up kill you and your whole thing is run away.
Yeah, like personally for me it's like that genre in of itself is not something I necessarily go to all the time, but I find whenever I watch a show that is based in that type of genre, I find myself just getting completely immersed in it. Maybe that's because I'm a shonen junkie inherently, a sports shonen junkie, but like that might be because like it's a completely different taste. But it's one of those types of anime that's out there that I feel like when you find the really good ones, they stand out so well. But also on the other side, when they're really bad,
well, that's the thing. I don't think there are any inherently really bad psychological thriller anime.
Yeah, I can't think of one I've watched where I was like, this is bad But
what I mean is like ones that aren't as intense though to me are bad because they don't get me as immersed in the world.
Fair.
And that's my issue with that genre.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That's fair.
When the genre doesn't get you immersed, it doesn't do it for me.
That's fair.
Yeah. That's a very fair complaint. Yeah.
And then the one I wanted to mention one more for psychological thriller, and that's the show Monster.
Oh yeah.
Oh dude, oh my god, I've gotten so many recommendations for that one. I still haven't watched that one.
Check it out. So it's the show's entire premise, and the question it's going to answer is is it inherently good to not kill? And the main character refuses to murder, and then the adversary Johan is an avid murderer, and he's trying to manipulate the main character into murdering. So and by and he's like the most evil person you could possibly meet. And so, but if you leave him alive, are you any better than he is? Like, so that's the whole premise of the show, and that's such a profound notion. And I'm not going to spoil that because that is an excellent show, excellent manga. I highly recommend that. Diego, could you go ahead and go a little bit into the three recommendations, like real quick?
Yeah. Okay. So my three recommendations were the first one was Blast Tempest, and this one's kind of like a light one. It's not gonna get to like completely immersed like Max would put it, but I think it's very I want to say like I don't want to say low level because I'm not trying to say it's bad, but it's very easy to pick up and it's very short and there's not a lot of
investment.
Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of investment.
It sounds like there's. Sorry,
so if you just want to like dip your toe into like some psychological thriller, then I would go for Blast Tempest. It's a little bit fun. The characters are very drip worthy. Have a lot of drip.
Could you put a picture of like the manga covers on the screen for the fans for
this?
Yeah,
I was literally thinking about that too.
Yeah.
And then my second one, I think I said Death Note. I think everyone knows Death Note. I feel like everyone knows what Death Note is.
Yeah.
It's
If you don't, go watch Death Note.
Yeah, it's literally like one of the basics. Basic anime.
No, but watch the live action movie first. Then you actually be able to fully enjoy the animated
You know what's funny? Do you guys remember Stage, my roommate?
Yes.
In college?
Yeah.
I was trying to get him to get into anime, right? And I told him to watch Death Note on Netflix, right? And then he accidentally watched the live action and he fucking loved it. And I was like, bro, if you love that piece of trash, then then you gotta watch the anime. And then he instantly picked up the anime and he's like, yep, that shit was complete garbage. I didn't even know why I watched that. That shit was hilarious.
Yo, I think that's another positive about this genre. Psychological thriller is a very easy transition from standard media to anime.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't do a lot of over the top like blast, boom, boom, boom. Like sometimes there's a bomb, sometimes there's a gun, sometimes there's a fist fight.
You know, the thing about psychological thriller is that I feel like in order for it to work, it has to be very humanized. You know what I'm saying? It has to be very personal.
So, it has to be done in a way that you can understand, because there has to be enough for you to understand and enough for you to figure out for it to be a psychological thriller. I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then I guess the last recommendation would be Parasite, Parasite the Maxim. It's about. I mean, if you guys haven't watched it, it's about. I mean, is it a spoiler if I start? I don't want to know how.
Well, start with it as a bomb opening.
Well, okay, yes. The opening is pretty fire in my opinion.
Oh man,
like, I don't know why that shit hits so hard. I don't even understand what they're saying. I know they're speaking English. I don't understand what they're saying.
Look,
but that
man,
shit is awesome.
Honestly, I just watched the anime for that opening, and then I got into the anime.
So I think I would go ahead and say that the show is about a parasite. It's of no relation to that movie that won the Oscars last year.
Yeah.
But
it's about all right.
Go ahead.
It's about a human, right, and a parasite that have to learn to coexist. And the parasite is very much thinks like an insect, very straightforward, logical, zero emotions. And the human is very emotional and does things that the insect only works. Well, the parasite only works for itself, only does things for selfish gain, versus the human, which is trying to save people and stuff like that. And so it's a very interesting dynamic, having to work together for logical reasons, but for emotional reasons as well.
Yeah.
And so watching each of them go through that type of drama and change in a way, in certain ways.
And you have like the parallels in other human characters and other parasite characters as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so
where some human characters are more parasitic, and then some parasites might be more human.
Exactly. I agree.
All right. Well,
And that was a
that's
great way. That was a great way to say that without spoiling anything.
Yo, the
I
way
was really
Diego was
trying
saying
hard
that
not to
though,
spoil it.
the way I was hearing Diego say that was honestly like the birds and the bees story. Like when a parasite meets a human.
So, and on that note, I'll go ahead and say my number two. So my number two would have to be the romance genre. And anyone who knows, I put Max on hard to this genre of anime and manga.
It's an unhealthy obsession now.
This guy, and that, and okay, so I will say this: not all romance anime is ecchi. Um, but some of them are much better than just the PG things. Like it's a weird dynamic because I'm in it for the romance writing, right? So if it's
It's
well
a
written,
very fine line.
it is a very fine line because a lot of ecchi manga and anime are really bad. They're really bad. They're just fan service, disgusting, terrible. However, a well written one really makes you go, why is this scene even here? I want to see more of their relationship progressing.
I
And
want to
so
see them be more cute together.
yeah. And it's weird because there's certain anime like Why Are You Here, Sensei that are oddly wholesome.
Devin's all-time favorite.
No, not my all-time favorite, but
Sorry,
it's
top
oddly
five
wholesome.
favorite.
In that genre, I think it will. It's definitely going to get a recommendation from here.
Yeah.
But that being said, right, the romance genre it's as old as humans themselves. You can go back to caveman times, and the earliest stories we have are love stories. We got Eros and Phoebe, and like from ancient Greece, and the quintessential love story is, you know, it's transcended time, and so it just.
So I'd actually, so I'd actually be interested because I'm very blind to a lot of romance series because in a lot of anime, I feel like romance, especially shonen and popular anime, I feel like romance is used horribly.
Agree.
And so that turns me off to anime romance in general. So I'd actually like to see like what aspects of romance animes does it better than like most other anime, if that makes sense. Like why is it that like romance like
Why does the genre work as an
Gotcha.
individual
Okay.
than
yes,
shonen?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
so
But it
there's
doesn't but for some reason it doesn't I feel like it doesn't work a lot in
just always yes.
doesn't always work. Yeah.
So okay, one thing I want to clear up is that romance is often used as a subgenre. It's not always used as the primary genre. And the reason why I don't think it works great in shonen is because it's geared towards 14, 15-year-old boys. And that's not really what they're trying to push. When someone has an interest in a battle, like that's why Chi-Chi has terrible character development in Dragon Ball Z, right? That's why Bulma has okay character development, but not in her relationship. It's just there. Um, versus something like my number three recommendation, Subasa Reservoir Chronicles, which is an action adventure, and I do mean this, the manga only. The anime changes something because of filler and censorship, so the whole second half of the story just doesn't exist in the anime. The manga, however, is about this kid who literally starts passing through dimensions so that he can save the love of his life. It covers the battle shonen topics. It's a romance, and it covers both of those well because it's written for the teenage girls. I think it's a shojo is that genre.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd be the genre.
because it's if you look at its genre classification, it's shonen, shojo, romance, action, adventure, which is really cool to me. Um, the next one I would like to recommend would actually be Rent a Girlfriend. Um, that show, first of all, the anime is very well done, but the manga is like the quintessential get over your ex kind of story, and the two characters are like they end up falling in love with each other because he's paying her to be his fake girlfriend, and she just needs the money to pay for acting classes because she wants to, become an actress. Um,
Great way to start learning how to act.
no, exactly, and the thing about that is, it does end up being of a genuine relationship. They start seeing each other more and more frequently. They start relying on each other for like emotional support. They start going out of their way to do things for the other person. And before they even realize they like each other, some other people realize that they like each other. And it's always
like it always happens.
Yeah. But like
That always happens.
that's even true in real life, because like every so often you'll see your homie talking to a girl, and it's like yo fam, you like her? No,
You
that's
guys
just
really hit it off, yeah.
no, she's just a friend. um, and I guess for my last one, and again, I don't want to just say, "Ooh, it's my last one," but this is hard for me because I love romance manga.
Same.
I think I'm gonna just have to go with the classic. Inuyasha has several romances, but if you don't want a classic answer, then I'd probably have to say Toradora. That show is very good. It's on Netflix. It's like 20 some odd episodes, if that. It's about this dude who looks like a juvenile delinquent and this girl who's actually a juvenile delinquent, and they end up and have crushes on each other's best friends, and then they try to then slowly feelings from all over the place start to unravel and stuff. But yeah, it's a great show. I recommend Toradora, Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, Rent a Girlfriend, and Inuyasha.
I'm gonna have to start reading Tsubasa War Chronicles.
It's great. I'll send you the stuff.
Yo, please, after this, I'm reminding you.
Absolutely. So moving on, Max. What's your number one choice for genre?
Well, I think this should be obvious for everyone because I literally have had 4 breakfast burritos. Is it 4 now? It's 4 breakfast burritos.
It's 4, and you're going on 5 this weekend, actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna be going on 5 this weekend. Check out breakfast burritos, sports burritos specifically. But sports shonen is one of my favorite genres. It is my favorite genre, I'd say, 100%. And it's just because I think I've grown up playing sports my whole life, so I very much relate to like the sports genre in general.
So what is the appeal of the sports genre?
Well, one, have you ever failed at winning nationals? That's one nice thing to see. Other people win nationals. That's pretty cool.
I should kick you in your chest.
Devin, I lost in the state finals too, okay? I understand. But one of the things I like about it, though, is just that there's a very simple goal in most of these shows. It's, I want to get to nationals. I want to win regionals. I want to do something. It's like there's a goal, there's a start and an end point usually, which I really appreciate in an anime because I know where we're going. I don't know how we're getting there, but I know we're going to get there. The second thing I really love about shonen animes in general are more specifically the ones that are closer related to their sports is just watching the technical skills that are put on display in the anime. Like, for instance, Diamond Oasis is very similar to how baseball's actually played. And I appreciate that.
Minus the fluff moments, obviously.
Yeah, minus the fluff moments, obviously, but the actual type of pitches they talk about, most of them are true. Even Samura's moving fastball and the different iterations, there are versions of that, not as dramatized.
Exactly.
But like there are a lot of different versions like that. And I really appreciate that. And I love it when they also explain to people, yeah, like this is how you play the sport. Because I've gotten into other sports because I've watched these other shows. Like
volleyball.
Like I watched Haikyuu and Devin's like, I made it to States. And I'm like, oh, what? You gonna teach me? And then
yeah, it's the same way for me. I got into basketball because of Kuroko no Basket.
Actually, it's funny because I now have a passing interest in rock climbing because Ike Wakaru. It's a brand new anime about rock climbing.
Devin, there's a rock climbing place by my house that I've been trying to go to. If you want to go rock climbing,
so
I'm down to go.
But anyway, the other half
by my place, but
the other half of shonen I want to talk about is also like the more unrealistic part of shonen sports, which is our Kuroko no basketballs.
You mean Dragon Ball Z with the basketball?
Essentially. And it's like the other half of shonen sports that I also love because it's just, let's go out of reality real quick. Let me question that this is high school sports, first of all, and what are the pros even like if you're shooting Mach 5?
Yo,
like
listen.
basketball.
I
I
love
think
how they never go into the pros.
No, but I
They-
want to see the pros.
They
I
stick
love a
to high
spin-off.
school level.
yo, I think Almine could cross up Byakuya from Bleach.
Yo, but the way they like what I appreciate about it though is that the way they like do it so over the top is sometimes how it actually feels though in certain sports moments. We all know like that.
That just feels in your head when you're playing that
Yeah, the
sport.
passion. Yes,
Yo,
yes,
that's how you
exactly.
feel in your head, but in reality you're that not.
know.
It's not even close.
Obviously, you're not shooting beans at
No,
out of basketballs and
Listen,
stuff.
but listen, when you sink that three from just beyond
Yes, yes.
to you that was full court.
Yo, to you that was
You
the
see, when I think that three, every time I think that three, I do the. You guys have to know I do that.
But
But
and
yeah.
the last thing I want to say about like sports shonen in general is that no matter what genre you like enjoy, you will enjoy sports shonen just for the thrill. As you can see, we all have different tastes here, but we can all definitely agree it's
Exactly.
a fun time to watch.
Even if you don't like the sport that's on the TV or computer screen,
Yeah,
however you're
yeah.
watching it, even if you don't like that sport, because I'm not the biggest fan of basketball, but Kuroko no Basket is lit.
Yeah, I'm
And it's
actually to go off of Devin's point. I actually agree with that sentiment a lot because I do not like watching sports. I do not like watching sports, but I do love playing sports. And so and so watching anime gives it that like extra flair that helps me like entertainment. Like I do like watching sports highlights, but I just can't sit through an entire game. But watching that anime gives it the story, gives it I need to know like these characters, I need to know these players, the story behind them, why they're doing it and stuff like that.
I need to watch this dunk.
And even if you don't like sports, you can like sports anime.
Easily. And the one thing is, we can all agree we've watched like maybe a few episodes of Kuroko no Basketball or Haikyuu, and then be like, yo, I gotta get out on the court real quick, and then realize you're nowhere near that level, go right back inside.
Oh no! With Haikyuu, I was like, we could do this. Bang!
But Devin, you try basketball. We all know you can only dunk once. That's your special move.
It's true. I can dunk once and I don't land well.
Yeah. But I guess now I should go into the three I'd recommend.
Yes.
And the first one I'm going to recommend is definitely Kuroko no Basketball. If you need any reason to watch it, just listen to the previous conversation. It's a great time.
Sure.
The next one I'd recommend is Maknochi no Ippo, one of the longest running sports shonen out there to this day. And
I'm actually starting that soon.
It has great character development, great story, like great fight scenes. They got jet engines going when they're hitting people in the face. It's intense. And then you go watch regular boxing, you're like, this isn't as cool. But they give you a little synopsis.
Ippo has the best fighting game ever.
Oh, hands down. But to give you a little summary of what Maknochi no Ippo is about, it's pretty much about a kid who's bullied a lot, and he pretty much ends up in a boxing gym and has to go on a whole journey to become like the national champion and try to go to like become the world champion. And it's a really nice underdog story where it's like your everyday Joe essentially, like trying to survive in this world of boxing, and you always find yourself rooting for him. But on the flip side, there are a lot of great characters he does end up fighting that you also want to root for, and you feel very conflicted when they're fighting. Like I found myself actually in one or two fights not rooting for Ippo because the characters of the other guys was so well developed.
Ayo Max, you doing the thing with Ippo again?
Oh, Hajime.
What's your number one? What's your number one?
Wait. Can I just say one more thing about Hajime no Ippo?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, one more thing. Even though it's boxing, the amount of fighting styles and the amount of like the way the characters are built, with featherweight and like their lanky arms and stuff like
actual, like weight classes.
It gives there's actually a creative element behind like the fights, because it's not just the standard everyone looks exactly the same, everyone fights exactly the same, everyone has their own fighting style, and it blew my mind that there's that many fighting styles in boxing.
The Hispanic dude with the fastest jab.
The hangman's jab, yeah.
Oh my god.
But I will say one other thing on top of that though. The one very unique thing about Ippo in this series is that he wins his fights by knockout as a featherweight. And For anybody who doesn't know anything about boxing,
that doesn't happen.
You don't, and so that's what makes him very scary to fight because you do not want to go up against a featherweight that can knock you out.
Yeah,
because they fast and strong.
Yeah, where he's putting short dudes to sleep. But Max, what's your number one recommendation?
The number one recommendation is it's not the best sports anime out there, but it's one that I personally love, and that's an anime called Baby Steps, which I've talked about on Sports for Weebs Part 1. Please check it out. But what I like about Baby Steps is that I'm a big tennis player, so I was really into this right off the bat. But I really just like the simple story of just like somebody wanting to play tennis with a passion of it, and that passion slowly growing into him wanting to make a living out of this. Because that's what a lot of tennis players can relate to. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I really like is that they don't do anything flashy or over the top in terms of like secret techniques.
And how realistic is it?
Almost 100% realistic, except for him saying like 100 squares on a court. I'm like, no, pause. We can do 36. Like pros can do 36, not 100. But it's in a very realistic realm. And I really appreciate that, especially someone who loves tennis and watched Prince of Tennis. I was like, I wanted something that was actually the sport I played and not Dragon Ball Z, but with tennis.
Valid.
And Baby Steps is in of itself a pure tennis anime. And if you want to learn about tennis in general, or learn about the rules, or maybe learn about how to hit some shots, cough, Devin, Baby Steps would be a great recommendation for you.
I'm good. Anyway.
No, you're athletic.
All right. Now moving on. Shut up, Max.
We're definitely
Diego.
having a special.
So Diego, on to your top pick for genre.
My top pick for genres are epics. So I'm super interested in epics because things like Beowulf and things like I love things like Beowulf, Greek mythology, things that are just like grand scaled and like epic. Like there's no other way to describe them except epics. It's just it gives you that feeling of like you're onto something greater. You know what I'm saying? It gives you that feeling of you're watching something great. And they do. Hold on, I'm actually lost right now.
I can say one thing about epics, and while you're trying to gather your thoughts.
Yeah, go.
Like epics to me is how like the original shonen before shonen was a thing, because you're talking about legendary warriors going to battle for glory,
yes.
And being bad. I can't say the rest of that statement because censorship policy. But bad. Yeah, that. And going to fight like thousands of men with one sword. Yeah. And like coming back and, being praised with glory with your city.
And characters being able to one thing I love about epics is that every time there's a statement of, oh, this guy is undefeated or this is impossible to do. Guess what's about to happen?
It literally
impossible.
It literally goes back to stories in the Bible, stories in the Mahabharata,
David and Goliath.
Exactly.
Yeah,
stories.
Goliath, yeah.
Stories in the Quran. We got the Iliad. We got the Odyssey. Jason and the Argonauts.
You got those caveman drawings of them fighting mammoths.
Well, those are a little different. But the spoken word is human's oldest form of story, even older than the romance genre, because battle is the human condition, and so these grand epic stories that keep getting told time and time again. And now the modern version of those, like one of Diego's favorites, One Piece.
Yeah. So in manga, the reason why manga does, I feel like epics so well, because manga and anime is already an exaggerated art form of real life. Yep. And so in order to have and epics are exaggerated. So it's like you have an even more exaggerated thing, and it flows so well within the art that it's like, I feel like it's one of the best art forms in order to do an epic story.
I agree.
Because then you can have these exaggerated features, and it won't look as weird or as thing, and it'll look as grand scheme as the author wants you to.
Or take you out of the world.
No, yeah, I definitely agree, because I think it works better than a live action, because I feel like if Game of Thrones was an anime, it would have don't get me wrong, Game of Thrones. First 7 seasons was good, fine. Season 8, we don't talk about that. But
wait, there was season 8?
But if it was done as an anime instead, Like they would have never had to cut certain characters
Yes.
out of frame. They could have had the episodes as long as they were and still shown the same like stuff. But you could have a more exaggerated art style. You could show more exaggerated feats. You can make people look stronger. You could have people moving so fast that it looks like there's lightning around them.
You could
Like
have like
Exactly.
ridiculous fights, like the battle scenes they were trying to do. You could up like a notch significantly.
exactly.
Exactly. And it plays for the art form so well.
Correct.
I would pay to see White Walker's like Battle of Winterfell like animated version. I'd
Yeah.
pay so much.
So for those
my
of you,
3?
well, actually,
my bad.
right before that, we were talking earlier about his favorite, about because he was having a little bit of difficulty finding out which of his favorites he should mention.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, he said action adventure at first, and then when we were looking up some like the genre names,
Yeah, more genres and stuff. And
he realized that. I had mentioned it. I had said that adventure is just baby epic.
epics. They feel like baby epics, and not to take away from adventures from
Correct.
from action adventures at all. Not to take away from them at all, but the lore and the world building that's always put behind these epics just makes it puts more weight behind each event. You know what I'm saying?
It makes the world feel bigger.
Exactly.
Well.
Yeah, and more realistic too. And I guess I guess I should go into my 3 recommendations. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I guess my 3 recommendations would be one that came out recently, Vinland Saga. If you guys have not watched that, that is a Viking epic. It is beautiful, beautifully drawn. I would go with the manga. The anime does have great animations. There are some pieces that I have issues with, but other than that, the music, the animation, the fight scenes are great in the anime. But the epic of Vinland Saga is just so great because think about Viking lore, and although there's not a lot of like fictional fantasy elements where like like people are throwing like shooting lightning, there's no like Thor shooting lightning bolts and stuff. Yeah. But there are like people that are like as strong as bears and stuff, and watching these guys like fight is just so amazing. Like when Thorkel picks up a tree and he's trying to fight Thorfinn, who's like the side, he's like what, he's like 4'11" at the time or something, and he's like dodging around and stuff. It's epic. There's no other way to describe it.
If I could touch on that like time period,
he's a man at that point.
That time period though is nothing but stories about people performing feats and legends. And they're all smaller epics within this larger epic overall. Just because there's so many amazing.
When you hear story of like like Thorkel the Great, the guy that's as strong as an ox, and then you see him fight, and you're like, he might actually be even stronger than an ox.
No. In the anime, he's 100% stronger than an ox. I have zero doubts about that.
Of course, yeah. He literally punched a horse.
He literally was fighting a bear because he was bored, and the bear gave up.
Bring it back.
All right, bring it back. All right, so my next one I would like to think is Kingdom. Now, Kingdom is a monthly series, and it's about Chinese. It's about the warring states. It's into if you're into a lot of war series and you're into seeing I don't want to say an accurate depiction because it's not accurate, but a fantasized depiction of China's warring states. Kingdom is a great thing. It's almost like shonen, but it's insanen. So it's very very bloody, very gory, but there is that emotional impact that shonen has.
Which is what war is about.
Yeah, which is what war is about. And then just so the video doesn't get too long, my last one will be my last recommendation is One Piece. And One Piece is such a great epic in my opinion because its length plays to how epic it is because it needs to be that long in order for the world to be explored as much as it is. And for you see these things, and I love how going back to why manga is such a good medium for epics. There's like a specific panel. There's like specific panels where Oda will exaggerate certain features, like in the in one of the greatest in one of the arcs of the in Marineford. There's a panel right where it shows all the 7 warlords.
Yep.
it shows all the 7 warlords, and they are huge. Boa Hancock is probably like I want to say probably like 6 feet, 8 feet tall. But in this panel, she looks like she's like 20 and 10 feet tall when you compare her to the size of like the fodder Marines. And obviously that's not realistic, or it's not the case.
It's used for symbolism, like to make them seem larger than life.
Exactly, and then you realize you start to actually feel like these characters are larger than life. You see Whitebeard, you hear the tale of how he took down 200 he took 200 cannonballs, 300 sword slashes, 800 bullets, and he died standing up. Like that's epic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm surprised there was anything left of him.
There wasn't much. I mean, half his head was gone.
Much. Yeah, half his head was gone. He didn't have the heart. But
right.
Yeah. So Devin, would you like to go into yours?
Yeah. So okay. So before we started recording, I was actually going to say tournament focused battle shonen. But I actually thought of something I like even more than that, and I feel kind of stupid for not thinking of it prior to this. Fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
100%.
All the ones I have fantasy elements.
Yeah,
I feel like fantasy is such a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah, fantasy is probably like obviously it discredits like it'll get rid of a couple of like my recommendations that I would have said like the only one I'll even mention would have been Kengan Ashura because it's almost a sports anime but it's about the underground, but there's no fantasy element so it doesn't fall into this category. But the fantasy genre is so heavily utilized in almost everything. Anything with a magical power system either falls into fantasy or supernatural. So like, and I'm not quite sure what the distinction is, because I know that Bleach is technically a supernatural, not a fantasy, but Naruto is a fantasy and a martial arts. But
I think
it might be the setting.
I think it's like, are we in modern times?
Maybe because they're ghosts.
Yeah, because they're ghosts. I think.
Yeah.
But I think if you're in modern times, I think it becomes supernatural, and then I think if you go like where thou with mayeth grab my sword, you are in fantasy.
Oh really? You think it's time? I thought it was setting. Because Bleach takes place in the real world, so
yeah.
So it would be supernatural, because these are.
I think fantasy is either olden days or like alternate universe where magic is the main component of how we do things here.
So the reason why I say fantasy, right, is because of the fact that anything with like a magical element is really cool. And so you have things like my number 3 recommendation, not the anime, never the anime, Berserk.
What are you talking about? Berserk 2016.
We're having a Berserk count. We're having every time we mention the Berserk anime count.
Yeah, the Baka Burrito drinking game. Every time we bring up Berserk in a video, take 3 shots.
So we're at like 30 then.
Yeah, you're gonna die.
That one Berserk video definitely gonna kill you, but like.
So with Berserk, you could watch 1998's anime. And you could watch the 2012 through 2014 movies. Those are the only acceptable forms of media for Berserk and the manga. Nothing else exists. It's fine.
Diego, please show one image of what doesn't exist here.
And so what ends up happening, right, is the fact that you have this human in an epic historical world, and then it turns out to be fantasy because now there's demons, ghosts, and ghouls and goblins. And the whole world is in turmoil because of this. Another thing that doesn't have an anime is called Ubelblatt. It means evil blood, and so there were these people called the Seven Spears, and it turns out there were originally 11 of them, and 4 of them turned on the 7. And the 4 were deemed the 4 evil spears, and the 7 became the heavenly spears. And we find our main character is one of the 4. And it turns out that that's not what happened. The 7 assassinated the 4 because they were too scared to go through with the mission and they didn't want to be exposed.
What was after the 4 completed the mission?
Correct, yeah.
So they're the 4 heavenly spears and they're the 7.
Yeah. And so it's a whole entire revenge story, and he gets reborn as a half-elf. And so this whole thing goes through this magic fantasy world where he's trying to kill his old comrades because they slaughtered him and his actual comrades, the ones who completed the mission, just so that they weren't stripped of their nobility. Um, so That's my second
Is the
recommendation.
manga still going, or is it on hiatus?
I think the manga's actually. I think they just recently came back. Don't quote me
Uh,
on that.
well, I haven't
Uh,
gotten an update yet in like 2 years, so
it has been a little while. But regardless, great manga, great read, even at the point it's at. Anyway.
you got
Um,
plenty of material.
and the last one I'm gonna talk about is another manga. There's no anime for this one either. And that's kind of crazy because like these are three of my favorite like forms of media of all time, and none of them have an anime adaptation because of the way they're structured. Um, Siren, and it can't be adapted unless it's weekly. Because you can't do seasonal with Siren because the story, the way it takes place, there's no chronological places you could take a break. Because the story just happens back to back to back. It's a repetition of like the same week, but like you go forward and back. Um, so there's almost even a sci-fi element to Siren. So it's about these people who awaken the ability to use psychic powers after being transported into this world called Siren, and they use their
So
psychic
this an
powers
isekai?
kind of.
It's not in the isekai genre, but like
It is, but
kinda, but it's
it is.
not.
It
It's
is, but it's not. But that's a spoiler. So. Um,
Well, we didn't know it was a spoiler until you said it was.
that's why I was trying to get Max to stop talking.
you just cut that out. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the story, and it's also a psychological because they're trying to solve the mystery of Siren, which is the world that they get transported to. And then they use their psychic powers to fight this evil organization who also has psychic powers. And the types of psychic powers are really cool. There's one character who has the ability to summon black holes. Um,
That's OP.
there's
Fully
there's
balanced.
there's another woman who can she has like weapon kinesis, like she could summon weapons out of like thin air. There's another dude who has like a dragon fist. Um, there's another guy who can just absorb monsters. It
Diego,
doesn't
the meta's all a mess over there.
No, yeah, the meta is crazy. Like nobody's balanced in this show. There's a guy who they think he's really fast, but he's really teleporting. Um, and then the strongest guy on the enemy side is just a regular telekinetic. He doesn't have any of these busted abilities. He just uses regular telekinesis, but he's so strong he can bend sunlight. Um,
Oh my,
Balance,
God.
like we said.
yeah, yeah. And everybody's favorite character who reads it, his name is Kyle. Cool little black kid, silver hair. He summons boxes, invisible boxes. It's like barriers and shields and stuff. But yeah, so it's a suit like there's super diverse powers, and like it's never whoever's stronger is just gonna win, because that guy I was telling you about, Grana, who can bend sunlight, he technically loses his fight that he does that in. But like the other guy's like, yeah, you win, but like, can you please join me? And he's like, why not? I'm strong.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
like,
you're right. Fantasy leads to a lot of creativity, which is
mm,
what I so much enjoy about every genre. The more creative the genre, the better, in my opinion. And fantasy for sure leads to probably one of the most creative.
agreed. And even looking at the three things I mentioned, Uberblot, Berserk, and Siren, um, the way the three characters interact with magic and the powers in their universe is so vastly different. Uh, in Ubelblatt, he's literally formed from magic because he died, right? In Berserk, he doesn't use magic at all. He has a cursed set of armor. That's different, right?
And
And
he gives
then
magic the
and then
hands.
in Siren, it's not magic. It's an innate human ability that just gets amplified. So like all of them just have a different approach to what is the fantasy element of it, and all of them obviously dip into other genres as well. But I think fantasy and romance are two of the more versatile forms and genres that exist. Do you guys have any closing statements before we wrap this up?
And the only thing I gotta say is that honestly, all these genres are really great, and I would never say not check out any of these. Like I would say, I recommend to watch at least one of every. if you can, because each one has its own unique feel and taste.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I think everybody should watch. Like, don't just be stuck, for instance, in like sports shonen. Go try like a psychological thriller, or go experience the
Yeah,
magical
I want to
fantasy
try some
worlds.
romance anime, honestly, because
Yeah.
the only romance anime I've ever actually liked was Koe no Katachi.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That movie. I thought that was a really great way to do romance, but with a twist.
Yo, I'll definitely send you a list after this.
Yeah. I would love a list. Actually, I actually have some anime, I think, on here that you guys recommended to me.
Yeah. You're like me, Diego. Like, it takes me years to watch whatever's recommended.
All right, guys. Well, that's been our list. We just wanted to keep this super casual for you guys. I'm Devin.
I'm Diego.
And I'm Max.
Tell us down below what your favorite genre of anime and manga are. We'd love to hear them and give us recommendations for shows. Maybe we'll cover them in future videos because we love hearing from you guys. Have a good one.
Peace.
Have a good one, guys.